guys, how's it going? Welcome to this week's recap video. We've had a really busy week, and actually a lot of it has been really nice weather up until about like a day or two ago. And we had a cold front come through. It snowed this morning. Not a lot of it has stayed around, but we have tomorrow night supposed to be 12 degrees. And then we're supposed to heat right back up into the 30s at night and 50s during the day, which I'm very much so looking forward to. Does that look better? Aaron just turned a light on.
Hold on, let me fix this.
Okay, so let's just jump right into the videos from last week. The first one was first containers of spring. And I utilized the new metal basket weave containers that we picked up like the day before, I think, at a garden center when Aaron and I went on a date day. And then also some plants I picked up down at the garden center here, and then also on our date day as well. And it was just so fun. I did kind of tonal green and whites and kind of chartreuse green. It's just, they're fresh and bright and they're plants. And this time of year, that was really fun. And they're looking beautiful in the greenhouse right now. JL said, I just want to thank you so much for never using clickbaity titles or thumbnails, not participating in trendy YouTube tags, and not saying things like, please like, comment, and subscribe. Which for me at least is just a giant cherry on top of what we already love about you and your channel. That's awesome. Yeah, I've never really been into, like, self-promotion is tough for me anyway. That's why we just don't do very much with merch.
Yeah. The whole liking thing, though, it really does affect the algorithm, though. The more people that like I get why people say, please like the video, because the more people that like it, it just pushes the video out to other people. So that's a tough one for me, because like I would like to tell people to like the video, but it's annoying to hear.
It is.
But it really does help. So it's like it's kind of I see why people do it.
Sure. Mary said, where did you find the metal urn planters? Those are gorgeous. They are gorgeous. I found them at Franz Whitty, which is a garden center like, I don't know, 30, 40 minutes away from us. Does it have a Caldwell address or a Nampa address? Nampa, Idaho?
Probably Caldwell.
It's in between Caldwell and Nampa, kind of. But
I'm not sure.
It's in Idaho, and yeah, I've looked at those planters before when my mom and I and Aaron and I have gone and just to see what was at the garden center. And I've looked at them, wanted them, so finally just decided, you know what? I've wanted these for long enough. I'm going to pull the trigger and buy them. And I typically do that with things like that. I will watch them for a while, and then I'll pick them up later if they still happen to be there. I feel like it's destiny. Those pots were meant to be at our house. Anyway, I don't know what brand they are. There was no brand on the planter. I did a double check. Like, I looked all over underneath, and then the tag that they had on them just had a Franz Whitty and a price tag, or a price on it. It was just a Franz Whitty tag. So I don't know if, contact them and see where they got them. I don't know.
Yeah.
Sandy said, where do you buy your sheet moss and exactly what type was used for these projects? So I get it down at my parents' garden center. They can order it in bulk boxes. We just did a succulent project yesterday. So this is what the bulk box looks like, and this is all the information I have. I think that they order it at the same time that they order their super moss, but I would imagine it would be a super moss brand at that point. But it's just bulk sheet moss. It's a lot less expensive when you buy it this way. Like, for a box this size, it's usually between $60 and $70. For those planters, I used a little less than a box, I would say. And I usually get several years out of my moss, several seasons. So anyway, I feel like it's a pretty good investment, well, at least to buy it that way. If I was going to line those planters with like the bagged type, that would add up super, super fast. So talk with somebody at your local garden center and see if it's something that they can get a hold of. And $60 to $70 is the retail price. Like, that's what, is on the side of the box there. Rhonda said, did I hear Laura say that she doesn't pack things in on every single container she puts together? I don't.
Well,
not everything.
You only don't if it's at my request. You always pack them in. If you're left to your own devices, you'll always pack it in.
It's true. I err on the packed in side of things. However, though, if you watch the progression through the years, like on our east side containers, we've planted far less in those containers. Like, in recent years, as opposed to like prior years. I used to put like 9 annuals around the outside and then a centerpiece, I think, or more. Let's see, I would usually pick 3 things and do 3 of each, so that's 9. And then maybe like an extra foliar, like a ipomea or something, so that's 10. And now I do like 6. Sandra said, I wonder if you have seen Encanto yet, and I'm curious to know which character are you most like. At a glance, I would think you are like Isabel, one of Mirabel's sisters. Her gifts, it's all about flowers. Not sure if you've seen the movie yet. If not, I'm sure Benjamin and Samantha Grace would enjoy it. We watched it this morning. We've kind of, like, I'm trying to, like, get off the whole Frozen thing. Samantha Grace that movie like hacks kids' brains.
Yeah, it has a power over children.
It does. And she just like, she would say, nah, nah, nah. Because, you know, like the beginning song.
Movie.
And so you get her up from a nap and you'd be coming down the stairs and she'd go, nah, 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 nah. Like she wanted to watch Frozen. Anyway, so we have been trying Encanto and they love it. Mm-hmm. She doesn't complain about it at all. And honestly, I haven't seen it from start to finish. I've only ever seen little snippets because I'm usually watching the kids and we're kind of moving around and such. But I like how, I don't know, it's colorful and the music's fun. I need to watch the whole thing. Jada said, how do you figure out what to plant together? Looks beautiful. Thank you. You know, this time of year it's fun because you can pretty much put anything you want together, because in the spring you can just fudge lines in terms of like plant compatibility, plant light requirements and things like that, because your shade lovers can handle a lot more sun in the spring because the sun isn't as intense. In fact, when you have, and I think I maybe talked about this in a later video, but maybe today's planting in a basket, but you know, you think about hellebores and how they want, and hostas and things like that, how they want more shade. Well, that's very true in the summertime here in high desert, at least, where, you know, we don't get cloud cover or humidity. There's no protection for them. But in the spring, when they're naturally in their blooming stage and, you know, at their peak, they are receiving quite a bit of sunshine because our trees haven't leafed out yet at that point. So it might be a little bit filtered, but they're still receiving a lot more than they will later on once the heat comes. But I don't know, I think after you've put together a lot of planters, you kind of just like realize, I guess, or you can see things and kind of see it coming together in your mind. And to me, it's like, okay, well, I want something in this planter that has some height in it. And then I need something that's a little bit of a bridge between the high thing and the lower things. And I need something that's just foliage, and I need something that's more wispy. And you kind of look at all those things, and like eventually, I've put together lots of planters before that I don't like too. So, I mean, it's a lot of trial and error. Sometimes you stumble on a really good like combination. You're like, I need to remember this recipe and how this came together. Megan said, Laura, are there any varieties of hellebores where the flowers face upward, or do they all face downward? No, there are some that face upward. And I know that's a huge deterrent to wanting to grow hellebores. I've heard several people say that, which I don't like personally. I don't care. I think they're just the most delicate when they're nodding. If a tag says it's nodding flowers, that usually means like nodding. That means they're kind of facing downward. They're like little bells or ballerina skirts. And the back side of the flowers are almost every bit as pretty, especially on some varieties, as the bloom itself when it's facing toward you. But there is a collection called the Gold Collection of hellebores that most of those will face upward. There's also a few like Ivory Prince, Jacob, Pink Frost, Spring Party, Cinnamon Snow, I think. There's a few. You could Google it and find out a list of varieties that face upward if you want something that does that. Sometimes, like for an arrangement, it is nice to have something facing out too, because like maybe the white is brighter on the face of the bloom as opposed to the back side of the bloom. There's different purposes, I think, and uses for each type. And Danny said, are there drain holes in these pots? Yes, there are. Well, it's not like a drain hole like you see in a normal pot. The base screws onto the top, so it's not watertight. It's not like a super large drain hole, but the sides being open like they are and just having moss and burlap that's super breathable, and then the fact that some water will get out down below, I felt like it was okay to not have a like legitimate drain hole. I don't know. I think they'll be totally fine because air will get in and dry them out, and I'm not watering that much in the spring anyway, so it's kind of the perfect time to use them, I guess. We'll try them out this summer though and see what happens, but I think it'll be the same.
Only about an inch of water or so could stay at the bottom.
Yeah.
And that'll get sucked right back up as they dry out.
That's true. So the basket weave kind of stops, and then there's like a little solid bowl at the bottom where it screws on for stability, and it's only about, maybe an inch or a little bit more deep. Yeah. So if water's going to collect, it's only going to be that high before it subs out over through the burlap and through the moss and goes down the sides of the container. Next video is organizing my parents' finished potting shed. So Benjamin and I went out and met my mom and sister out at my parents' house, and we helped my mom put their potting shed back together. They recently had it finished, so much like we did this studio. They had a shell of a potting shed sitting out there. It wasn't insulated. It was just 4 walls basically and a roof, much like the studio out here. And so they had it insulated and finished on the inside, a little heater installed so that they could use it for more things than what they were using it for. And so it was fun to be able to help put things back. There was a huge pile of stuff that had come out of the potting shed, and it was just piled there with a tarp for the whole of the winter. A lot of it, like, it was a muddy mess of a project, and some of it was still frozen together. We couldn't even take it apart, but we got most of it done. My mom had back surgery last year, and she's still like trying to be very careful about how much she's lifting, and really, like, I don't know, it's fun to get together and do those projects together anyway. Heather said, you know it's going to be a great weekend when you get a Garden Answers Saturday surprise video. Oh, that's the other thing. We did post that on a Saturday, didn't we? I think we're nearing the season where we're getting, like, there's so many projects going on. We might be posting. You might have seen a video yesterday. I'm not sure. It just depends. I think every week will be different, but we're getting to the territory where 6 days a week of videos might be a reality.
During the season, it's really not hard to do 6 videos a week because there's just so much stuff that we're doing.
There is, and it's tough. We don't want to get too far ahead either with videos, because then I'm wanting to give an update and we haven't even put the video up yet, you know, sort of thing. I love the transformation. This space will be greatly loved. It already is. Cindy said, did Monica find her clippers? Curious minds want to know. Yes, they were in a drawer inside the potting shed still. So in one of the little... there's 2 little desk things in there. There's a potting bench and a little desk, and both of them have drawers. I'm not sure which one my mom found them in, but she just opened a drawer and, like, they were sitting there. I don't know what Monica was doing. I don't know if she just didn't look at all, or if she just figured she had thrown them in the pile. I don't know. Anna said, can you say where you got the heater? So that heater was supplied by the electricians who were actually here today roughing one in our cut flower shed. My mom said, you know, well, and we were just talking about it, and we're, you know, our project's moving fairly slow. Hopefully it will be done by the end of March, but I just told her, you know, like, I don't plan on heating it, but I wonder before the walls go up on the inside, I wonder if I should just put one in there.
Yeah.
For just a few extra $100, it's going to afford us the ability to do projects out there if we want to. If something's wrong, like in the greenhouse, and we need to move, it just gives us another space that we have the potential to heat. And it's far less expensive to do it now when the walls are open.
Well, really, you know, it's just nice to have a heater in the wall because, you know, you could just have a little space heater out there, and it's really no different. You're basically just putting a space heater inside the wall, so you're getting rid of cords and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And if it's all open, like, so that's really all you're doing is you're just buying a space heater today and putting it in the wall.
I like the fact that there's no cord strung along the floor, and there's no there's no floor space being taken up. I mean, you can't put anything in front of it, of course, during the winter if you're going to use it. But I don't really, I don't anticipate packing that thing full. But, you know, you can clear that space out if you need to. Make room, wait for the heat to come out. But that little heater in my parents' potting shed, my mom's like, sometimes I just, like, I don't even run it. Like, I'll run it for 10 minutes and just turn it off, and it stays warm for a really long time. So, did a good job on insulation on that.
Yeah.
Wheaties said, your parents' vegetable garden has so much shade and it's only winter. What can they grow? They can grow everything in that garden. It's the weirdest thing. It's like this little pocket that's like perfection for growing stuff. It actually gets full sun most of the day. At the very end of the day, that apricot tree that's kind of in front of the potting shed kind of shades that one bed, which they usually have greens in, which is perfect because greens like a little protection. It keeps them from bolting super fast and keeps them cooler. But the rest of it is full sun. And it's like this little, like, sunken, it's always warmer down there than it is even like 2 steps up in their back garden. It's weird. Diane said, what is the name of the drink you made at the end? That is a basil gimlet. We have showed that in several videos, I think, because it's our favorite drink. It's simple syrup, lime, basil. I prefer gin in mine, and my sister and mom prefer vodka in theirs. So Christina said, did your sister move back to Oregon? I remember her living in Washington. Yes, they lived in Yakima, Washington for a few years, and his work brought them back to the valley. They're actually in Meridian, Idaho, so they're 45 minutes away. She still comes to Ontario 4 days a week. She works at the garden center, which is really awesome. I know my parents are super happy to have her. I tried to steal her from my parents. Like, Monica, you should come work here. Alas, loyalty. Marie said, loved this video. Will you be doing a tour of your parents' garden this year? I hope to. My mom has much bigger goals for this year, much loftier goals. She knew that the back surgery was kind of imminent last year. So I try to respect everybody's space. They didn't have their garden in a position where she felt comfortable because she didn't have like the physical ability to do the kind of gardening that she normally does. So like a lot of annuals didn't get planted last year. You know, everybody has those years where life just happens and you
still look super nice.
I know.
Though.
I'm like, Mom, The garden's amazing. You don't
Yeah.
need annuals in here. Like the 30-year-old mature landscape structure, that's what everybody wants to see. That's what inspires me about gardens, because ours is essentially a baby garden in most areas because we've had to do so much tear out. To see things at their full size, to see like how to put together the winter structure. I don't think people realize how important that is to their space and how it lends such an amazing, you don't even like know that what you're looking at, like that's the bones of the garden, and that's what makes it look amazing all year, annuals or not. But anyway, it was just kind of an off year for them last year, so I don't think we did a tour, did we at all? I mean, I did little planting projects and showed a few little things, but I don't think we did a legit tour.
Right.
Because I don't even know that I asked her.
Yeah.
I just thought I'm not going to even put that stress out there. But yeah, I think she's got much bigger plans this year. That would be fun. Do another tour. Gabrielle said, I'm in the market for a camera to use while I do videos. What are your suggestions? What kind do you use? We use several different kinds. When I'm out, let's see, for this video, I use GoPros because they're the best outside for like differing light. It's not the best look footage-wise to me, but it handles the light situation much better. So if you've got big clouds in the sky and it's bright, dark, it handles that a lot better.
Also, if you do a lot of moving around or get wet, or like they're nice because they're weather sealed.
Right.
So, they're action cameras. You can toss them around and they're pretty durable. And you were breaking the other ones so often.
I know. Well,
like once a month we were buying a new camera.
Though I figured out how to pop the lens top off of mine. I think that's what's wrong. I think it was the last video maybe that I vlogged, there was like a glare and I think it's just dirty underneath. I was in the Quonset building at Andrews at the garden center, and I had the camera in my pocket and we were trying to get this crate or something out, and it snagged on something and I heard the dink, 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 dink on the floor, and I looked at my camera, I'm like, I just broke the camera. I didn't, but I think a bunch of stuff got in there.
Well, I ordered a couple new lenses for the GoPro, so we can just swap them out with a fresh one.
Let me tell you though, they overheat. They overheat like crazy, even when it's cold. The GoPro 9, that's the one I'm holding, right? Or is that, no, it's the 10. It's like is that the newest one?
The newest one is 10.
The 10 overheats. I have to carry like 6 batteries with me when I'm doing anything, even out in the cold.
But it's an internal thing. Like, like you said, even out in the cold, it overheats.
Yeah.
So it doesn't actually have to do with the outside temperature. It has to do with the fact that it's just a faulty camera.
Yeah. Oh, when I hear that ding, 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 it makes a certain sound when it's turning off. I'm like, oh, good. Or sometimes I'm like talking with you guys and I'm right in the middle of a take and I'm like actually getting the information out in a good way. Sometimes it's tough. Like I have a hard time organizing all the information in a way where I feel like it's coming out the most like easy to digest. And so I'm in the middle of a good one and the freaking camera turns off because it overheats. It makes me so irritated.
Well, and you have to be prepared if you get a GoPro that you're just going to lose some footage every once in a while.
Yeah, cards corrupt and they just...
It's just unfortunate. Like, no one makes a perfect camera for what we need.
It's pretty good though. They're lightweight tripods as opposed to like carrying our Canons around, which I've done before for a vlog. Oh, on the big old Manfrotto.
Tripods.
Tripods are so heavy.
We use the Canon 90D for the rest of our filming, like for a nicer look. And those are older cameras, and the only reason I use those is because they're not mirrorless. And I run into the overheating issue with mirrorless cameras. I've tried so many mirrorless cameras, like Sony ones. I haven't tried Panasonic because the stabilization, I've seen so many horrible stabilization issues with the Panasonic ones, so I don't even mess with it. And then the Canon ones I've bought, and they overheat, like nice ones. Like I've spent like $4,000 on a Canon camera, or maybe it was even more than that with the lenses. And I just sent it back because it overheated within like 10 minutes of filming. And I don't understand, like, are people not filming more than 10 minutes at a time? It doesn't make any sense.
I know. Cell phones, though, if you have one of the latest phones, right? Like, I like my iPhone 10 better than what do I have now?
No, you like the 11. That's what you had before this.
What is this?
It was like an 11 Pro. You now have a 13.
Junk for pictures. I actually still have my old phone, and the only reason why I upgraded is because something was wrong with the audio and it sounded really tinny all the time. So if I tried to do stories, that's one of the reasons why I never did stories, because it sounded so bad. And it was probably, I think what happened is at one time, I can throw the picture up on the screen, or Ken will. I took a picture of myself planting corn at 6 a.m. in the morning, and in order to get that picture, I had to do a timer because I was the only one out there, and I shoved it down into a pile of dirt and packed dirt around the bottom of the phone to hold it straight upright, and I was just...
As one does.
I didn't even think about it. I just did it. I'm like, ooh, this is going to be a really fun shot. And then I ran over there and acted like I was like planting corn, and yeah, I think that ruined it.
Well, it probably shoved a bunch of dirt up the microphone and the speakers.
Yeah, I took a toothpick after it, but I don't think I could get it all.
Yeah.
Anyway, I don't like how the new one takes pictures, and I think it's kind of a general consensus.
A step down, yeah.
Yeah, it's like something, it's more blown out somehow, and then the portrait mode, you can only do like ×1 or ×3.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why is there not a ×2? I don't understand those things. So anyway, but they take good video, especially inside.
I think the iPhone is just like hands down the new iPhone. Well, the newest iPhones. Like if you have a couple within the last couple of years, I think they take the best video I've ever seen. It predicts the way you want it to look.
Mm-hmm.
Like it picks a lot for you. There's not a lot of manual control, but it gets it right like 99% of the time. Every once in a while, when it messes up hard.
Does it?
But it's, it's that 1%.
Mm-hmm.
So you just take the bad with the good.
Boy, you didn't even realize what you were going to get when you asked that question. Next video was planting snapdragon seeds. And that was another video. I sat right by the blower in the greenhouse and I forgot to turn it off. And you guys were so gracious. I'm going to really make a good effort trying to remember to turn that off. It's just that when you're around it a lot, you just don't really hear it until you're listening to it back in a video. Anyway, I just went over Snapdragon basics, some of the basic information. We've had really good luck with Snapdragons. Actually, all of mine are up now and doing really great in the greenhouse. That's amazing because Snapdragons are a huge portion of what I start inside. And so that's freed up so much grow light space in here. And it doesn't feel like I've got everything stuffed in here. And I think things are going to be happier out there growing. Marilyn said, I seeded a flower bed with snapdragons once and they filled it the entire season. The colors crossed and I ended up with rainbow blooms that same year. Wow. The plants behind those were columbine and they also mixed color, and that was the flower bed that started my addiction to the garden. Well, should say so. That would start mine as well. I can't even imagine how beautiful that was. Darlene said, are snapdragons cut and come again flowers? Yes, so they usually will come out with a nice big bloom, and if you pinch them, you'll get lots of blooms on the sides, and they will continue to push and grow more blooms. It's best if you can keep up on deadheading or shear them back after their first flush, depending on what kind of snapdragons you have. Can't believe I didn't even say anything about that in the video. There's always something there's just so many little details and things. Maybe over time I'll end up hitting all of them in videos, but yeah, I would say that they're definitely, I plant one crop of snapdragons out there in the spring and we have blooms all through the season. And we just cut on them all the time. I have to say I don't even do like a major shear back on any of them, and they tend to all produce. Now, I'm not growing them for selling though, so it could be a different situation that if you want premium blooms with long stems, you might need to follow a little bit of a different schedule. Max says, is that coarse vermiculite? It looks like perlite by the grain size. I do believe it is coarse vermiculite. It doesn't say one way or the other on the bag, but based on vermiculites that I have used throughout the years, I think it is. The consistency does change as you get to the bottom of the bag. Of course, little pieces settle at the bottom. I use all of it. Kathy said, what was the brand of the heat mats, the one in the box with the soil temp? I ordered them on Amazon, actually. I think they're Vivo Sun. My parents' garden center usually has all of that, but they were expecting an order. It was delayed, and I needed that mat like right now, so I got it in the next day delivery, which was nice. Vivo Sun, that one is a 48 inch by 20.75 inch, so it fits 4 11 by 22 trays. And it's got a thermostat. And that's the other thing. I wanted to make sure to have a thermostat because the temperature is so it varies in there between night and day, even though like right now it goes probably as low as 60. We have it set to 65, but there's always like a 10-degree kind of swing. So it can go as low as 60, but during the day when it's really sunny out, it can get real warm in there. So I wanted to make sure that it didn't continue to try to heat the soil if it was really hot in there. So the thermostat's nice because it'll stop heating if it senses a certain temperature. Anon said, the only problem I have with the vermiculite is that I can never tell if the soil is damp or dry under it. It's so frustrating to me. I wish it had changed color more when it needs water. Anyone else with that problem, best way to deal with it? You know, I don't know how thick of a layer you're putting on. Usually when I'm using it, it's just a very fine layer on the top to where I can still see the soil underneath. And that might be a little bit helpful if maybe you removed a little bit of that vermiculite so you could still see the soil. I can definitely tell if mine's dry versus wet, not like vermiculite excluded. I can still see the soil enough to note that difference. Next video was dividing dahlias. We went over again how we store them, which has been amazing. I thought when we kind of set out on the whole dahlia storage journey, I thought it was going to be a trial and error. I thought we were going to have a lot more loss. I thought I was going to have to try several different mediums before I found something that worked, because you find so many differing ways that people do it and that they find success with. And I think climate has something to do with it. I think situation in terms of where you have to actually store them, whether it's a basement or a garage, or in our case, a root cellar, I think it can very much so differ depending on what you're doing, where they are, what you're storing them in. Anyway, I'm just so happy that they've worked out the way they have. And then we went over division, like the anatomy of the tuber, what you need to have in order for a dahlia to grow. And then I divided some for you. We tried to get some close-up shots so you could really see, because it's an intimidating process, because not always do all of the parts of a tuber, they're not always pronounced. And so it can be scary because you feel like, am I going to wreck this? And you do wreck some of them in the process, and that's just part of it. Because sometimes they grow so intertwined that you have to kind of pick one to sacrifice to get it separated right. Anyway, I was hoping that it would kind of demystify that. Jocelyn said, tip, Flower Hill Farm saves the yellow bulb bags and puts all the newly separated tubers in bags. Yes, we need to do that this year.
Just need to save those yellow bags.
You know, we have used, Oregon is a plastic-less bag at the grocery store society now. Yeah, and so all we have is paper bags, which paper bags are great for storing tubers. So we ended up like labeling a paper bag, putting all the tubers and vermiculite in a paper bag into the crate. So they're all separated that way, but those mesh bags would have been so nice. I actually thought while we were doing it, packing up the first ones, I've now done like 2 or 3 shifts of dahlias. We're getting fairly close to being done with it. I thought, where could I source some mesh bags? I don't really want to buy them though. Like, it's perfect now. Yeah. We figured it out for this year, and then I will definitely take that tip and go with it next year. Yvette said, if you have 21 crates and 3 boxes now, how many will you have after all the division? Thousands. A lot. I mean, we got done with those 5 crates and it was 374.
What are you going to do with them?
Well, I have them all like farmed out already.
Oh.
Like some are going to Jenny and Jerry, some are going to Katie, some are going to some friends in the area. I'll give some to my parents, and then we'll have our own patch as well. I think we will have all of them. I think I've got them all farmed out to people already. So I'm also planning on putting more in flower beds, because I thought, you know, this is kind of like, I have no good excuse to have empty flower beds anywhere. Yeah. But I think what it comes down to is time and effort at the time that it's good to plant them. We usually don't have the time to get them in the ground, but you know, if I could just, I don't know, that'd be so pretty, just to have little drifts of dahlias here and there in the flower bed. So I might do some of that too. Haley said, if you decided to leave them in the ground, could you set up your high tunnels over them to protect them from any extreme cold temperatures? Yes. Then break the high tunnels down in the early spring after the danger of frost is past. You know, I've thought of a few different things. I mean, one, you can mulch them up with leaves really well. You could do like the super hoop situation, like do smaller. It doesn't have to be a great big high tunnel. It can be like the small hoops. I need to order more of those. Super hoops are awesome, you guys. They're from Gardener's Supply. I used them over our ranunculus and anemones last year. Prior to that, I had used some to grow greens over the course of the winter. I put a soil heat cable in one of our raised beds, seeded spinach and lettuce, super hoops with a garden quilt over the top, and I've got pictures of it. It was absolutely beautiful. Oh, and it worked so well, and they're so handy because they store flat, and you can make them taller or shorter or wider or skinnier. They're really flexible that way. Anyway, yeah, I was thinking you could do that with some plastic over them, have them mulched up as well. You could also like run a soil heat cable over the top of the soil. Like I've got a bunch of soil heat cables. If we're not going to use them, we could run it over the top and then put leaves over it, and it would just provide a little bit of gentle heat. I don't know if that'd screw them up though. It's gentle heat. It's not going to warm them up to where they'd start to grow in the middle of the winter. I don't know. there's lots of different options we could try. Terry said, what happens if you don't divide the dahlia tubers? I don't really know because I haven't been able to leave them in the ground long enough to experience it. I've had a couple of times where they have returned the year after, like when I used to plant 5 or 10 at a time per year. I had them come back one year after behind the gazebo rather, and I don't know how they made it. So I don't know if they would keep on like clumping out and you would end up having like a patch, or if the tubers would eventually, like, because they get pretty crowded. I don't know if they would, like, some of them would die out or not. I don't know. If you guys have experienced that, let me know. Because I know that, you know, sometimes people leave them in the ground and just, like, they don't lift them or divide them and they come back. But I just don't know how long you can do that and what happens along the way. Adam said, so if I leave mine in the ground, how do I eventually divide them? Can I dig, divide, let the cuts dry, and then plant again? Yes. So if you're in an area where you can leave them in the ground and you want to spread them around or expand your patch out, absolutely. Dig them up, divide them, let them dry, plant them again. It's perfect. Next video was helping unload a huge load of trees down at the garden center. It was their very first big load of trees of the year, and I love to be there when we get new stuff in because it's fun to see all the new things, even though they didn't have leaves. But I really wanted to show you guys kind of what it's like to unload something like that this time of year and why we choose to bring stuff in early. It's just easier on the plant. They don't sustain as much damage. You can tie up their canopies without wrecking a bunch of leaves and such. And then they're also a little bit more on our schedule because they come from the western side of the state. It's much more mild typically over there. And so they get over here, and if we get the fruit trees when they're in bloom and we have a cold front like we have coming through this week, like right now they're all under cover, it can wipe out all of their blooms, any fruit that they might set, and we do older fruit trees. So typically, like when I planted mine last year, I let them fruit. Not supposed to do that, technically speaking, I guess. But most of us can't wait a whole year to try our fruit out. So anyway, it was a fun day. Edith said, I find these behind the scenes of a garden center so very interesting. Thanks for sharing. I'm glad you do. I always wonder, like, you know, with this one, the truck backs in, you take the trees off the truck, you water them, untie them, and that's like kind of it, and organize them, which I didn't even show any of that. So really it's not involved. It just takes a long time. I'm glad you guys find it interesting. I'll probably be down there doing more things like that just to show you what it's like down there. Lori said, beautiful trees, so much variety. I have a question. Why, when your life is so full, family of 4, new property, new areas to plant, new structures to fill up, do you now feel it's time to return to your roots of helping out Andrew Seed? I love the videos and have enjoyed seeing these videos. I'm just curious what drew you back to where you started. You know, a couple of things. One, I want to always have interesting things to show you. And I feel like staying in my own space for too long, there's lots of fun stuff we have going on here too. But it's good for me, one, to get out of my own space and do something either in somebody else's yard or go down to the garden center where that spring energy is. And I think that was part of it for me. But I also want to keep it fresh for you guys too. I think it was the day I went down to do snowflakes. I helped my mom make snowflakes down at the garden center. When I got home that night, I told Erin, I need to do more of this. Like, I think it would be really fun to go down to the garden center one day a week or once every other week, or just like when certain things are coming in and just help. Like, I'm not being paid to be down there because I'm filming, you know, it takes me longer to do things. I just want to be down there with my family. I want to be down there to talk with people who are excited to garden. When I'm here in my own space, you know, it's just me and the camera most days. And like, I'm not that exciting. You know, it's exciting to talk to other people who are excited, and I feed off of that. So anyway, I think it's good all around. AJ's Green Thumb said, Laura, I know that this topic has been brought up and addressed somewhat, but I clearly see a new level of excitement when you work at the garden center. I think what it is that I can be down there working. I don't have to answer the phone. I don't have to take care of the plants that I'm helping unload later. Like, I am there to do the fun stuff, and then I get to leave. It's kind of nice. Like, I'm helping them out too, extra pair of hands, but I'm not there for the daily grind. Yeah, right. You should totally co-own and run the garden center at some point. Question, do you ever see yourself owning and running Andrew Seed perhaps in the distant future? You know, who knows? You never know what we're going to be doing 5, 10 years, 15 years from now. That was the direction I was going before we started a YouTube channel. I don't know. I really like what we do now, and it's super important for us to be in a position where we can have our kids nearby, and that's huge. That's huge. But I think we would sacrifice a lot to maintain that.
Yeah.
as long as we can. But as they get older, you know, we won't need to be around them like we are right now. I don't know.
I think it would be difficult to co-own. I think because that's the comment. I think co-owning probably would be difficult for everybody all around. Because I think, you know, your parents are leaders too, and they run the business. It's their business.
Yeah.
And I think we'd have a hard time, you know.
We're used to running a business.
We're used to running a business too. I think that's just kind of like a weird dynamic too. When you both are business owners, to all of a sudden have to answer to each other.
My brother has that same personality too.
Yeah, right.
So, yeah, there's a lot of kind of chiefs.
Yeah.
You call it.
But maybe, you know, your parents might want to be done at some point in the future. I mean, they will at some point in the future.
Yeah.
You know. So at that point, who knows?
Who knows? I do love it down there, though. Robin said, what type of cover is on that greenhouse, the one you're standing in at the end of the video? So that's a cold frame. It's got the plastic over it and then a layer of shade cloth, much like we had. Are we putting shade cloth on this next summer?
I don't think there's a plan to.
Okay, there's fans, lots of fans.
Well, it'll have 2 layers of plastic, and I'm sure that 2 layers of plastic will eliminate some sunlight.
The sides will be all the way up.
Yeah, and I don't think we really need shade in nothing that we put in there needs to be shaded.
Just as long as it doesn't stay super duper hot.
Yeah.
We'll just have to kind of gauge that.
I think we'll have good airflow. If the sides are up and the doors are open, plenty of airflow.
Hopefully. Stars said, a wonderful variety, looking forward to bloom time. Do you sell all your trees, or are there some that never sell? What do you do with the things that don't sell? You know, most things do sell, and every year is a little bit different. And I think the amount of time that you're in the business, you kind of know how many to order, at what time of the year to order. They do one fall sale where they discount things, and that's kind of, well, they do one June sale and then one fall sale. And they don't continue to discount things until they leave. Most of the time by the sale, like, you're lucky to get what you really want.
Oftentimes it's picked over by the time, like the sale is the thing that mostly gets everything out.
Yeah. I did show in a previous video, maybe when I was getting the hellebores out, when I got the hellebores and sedum, that was pretty much all except for one little tree rack of everything that they wintered over from last season. And they carry a lot of plants. So that was really good. There are years where it's much more full in there. You just kind of never really know, but you get better and better at planning on that, knowing when to kind of start clearing things out and stop ordering. Jacqueline said, oh my, all those trees. Can't wait to plant on our new property. Where is your dad? Does he work at the store anymore? Or maybe he doesn't like to be filmed. My dad didn't like the camera on him. Yeah, he doesn't love it. He was out there helping us untie trees, and you might have been able to see him in a couple of the shots. He does more of the seed brokering side of the business. So he is doing a lot of calls, a lot of networking.
And his office got moved.
His office got moved back to where there's a door on it now, which is really good for him because he doesn't get distracted quite as much. But yeah, it just makes him a little bit like out of the scene a little bit more. But he did come out and help us untie, because when we get a huge load of stuff like that, it's not good to leave stuff tied up for long. You want to get after it right away. Jennifer said, are there any dwarf fruit trees? There was one variety on that load. They were the Pixie miniature peaches, which I think grow 6 feet tall by 6 feet wide. We have one in a pot here. It does beautifully. And the last video from this week was how to plant in a basket. I have this gorgeous basket that I picked up while my mom and I were out on an antiquing trip. At some point, it was one of our more recent ones, maybe before Christmas. Beautiful basket, but I just wanted to show you how we line it, because I line those type of baskets, like wickery type baskets, different than I line a metal type basket. So I use burlap in a garbage sack or a piece of plastic, as opposed to using moss and then burlap. So it's just a different approach. And I use some gorgeous stuff in there. So some hellebores, a couple of different varieties of lavender, some ivy, variegated and green, and then some beautiful viola, like a denim. I think there were denim penny jump ups. It was so pretty. Kate said, was I the only one thinking there is no way that Laura is only putting those few plants in that basket? Then bam, a whole flat appears. No, that's my girl. That's right. I didn't have enough room on that table to fit everything that I needed in that basket. I thought I was going to use every single last plant, but I do think I ended up with a couple of violas left over. Surprised me. Kay Lindsay said, dig in the backdrop. Yes, that was a common comment I saw on that video, because we flipped our normal our normal filming is filming toward the back of the greenhouse, but the lighting was so weird and it was like kind of bright, but then there was a big clouds coming. I don't know.
Well, it was warm enough that day. That was the whole thing. Is normally we can't open the doors because it's too cold. But man, when you have a warm enough day and you can open the door, it's so nice.
It was nice. So we just turned the table around and we were facing kind of like the weeping willow and the vegetable garden area. It was a beautiful day. Wasn't cold at all. Judy said, well, what I was wondering was, when was this done? She was just bundled up in 4 layers and foot warmers. I know. Now she's outside with her shirt sleeves rolled up. Has it gotten that warm? It has been so erratic. And that's kind of our spring. Usually we have kind of a false spring in February where people kind of think like, that's why we get flowers in so early, because people are ready. Oh, dang gnat. I still have a couple gnats flying around in here. I'm getting on top of it,
the other thing is that when you open the doors, a lot of times if it heats up to say like 40 degrees outside, inside the greenhouse it can be like 80 degrees. So if you open the doors to let some fresh air in and you're standing right in that entryway,
it feels pretty
nice.
That might have been one of the 50 degrees days though. We had a couple that were like 50, 51, 52, which is what we're going to be next week. 50 to 70 is my jam. That is my favorite. That's my favorite temperature range.
Yeah.
What's your favorite temperature range?
Oh, same.
Really?
Yeah, because you can get out, and if you're working at all, then
which is the usual case, or playing.
So nice.
Benjamin loves to take the soccer ball out. I love it. I love that we can go up into that lawn and just kick the soccer ball wherever we want.
Yeah.
Even when we cut in flower beds around the edges and put in trees, I think we're going to leave enough space to where it's going to be a really open space to like do that. But anyway, when we're outside, we're usually moving, and I don't like it to be hot. Like 70 to 80 is okay, but once you're starting to get above 80, it's starting to get uncomfortable.
Yeah.
90s and above, no thanks. And it's like that for so much of our summer. Kayla said the platinum blonde lavender looks beautiful. Oh my goodness, that turned out so beautiful. So where would you put something like that since it has drain holes and its size? Will you place feet on it? We were talking about that. How it would be a good idea to put, and we get these little square, you just ordered them on Amazon, right? Like those little
They're just like little black rubber pieces.
And they're called pot risers, I think. Yeah, they're little black rubber pieces, which you could do 1 or 2 depending on how the basket sits. And so I think we're going to do that because that way, even if you water it, the water will want to like kind of pool around the edge. And I really want the water just to go through those slits, out the bottom, and then away from the basket. And it will take a very long time because the water is not going to be like on the basket all the time underneath there, that it'll take a long time to break that basket down, especially if it's sitting up. So that basket will most likely go near our back kitchen door, maybe on the table. It's a little bit large, but maybe on the ground next to it with a grouping of other things. I think it would look really good on kind of like a side table, like, you know, like the rolling cart that we have.
Yeah.
That would look pretty in an area like that. Kathy said, how long will this basket look fresh? Easter isn't until the middle of April. Will it look good? Will it look this good that long? Hopefully. Spring, things kind of just like, they kind of just sit. There's not a tremendous amount of growth depending on your temperature. I mean, if I leave it in the greenhouse for too long, it will want to put on growth. But once the temperature is nice enough outside, once we have consistent above freezing night times, I will move it out. I'll have to harden it off a little bit, so we'll go in and out for a couple of days. But it should look good for quite a long time. And right at the end is when it usually, like the violas, will really pick up and put on a lot of growth and be a little bit more bushy. But for spring containers, for me, if you want them to look really full, you got to plant them full in the beginning, because you won't get that look until the very end if you plant them too sparse. Jamie said, does ivy do well in a container long term, year after year? Yeah, you know, it depends on the container, but I have had ivy in the same containers for quite a long time. I had them in those lion urns underneath that pergola by our gazebo. I had ivy in there for a couple, 3 seasons, and I just kept planting around it. It was starting to root in though so thickly, I was having a hard time digging in it, so that's something to consider. But yeah, I've had great luck with it. You do have to cut it up and clean it though in the spring, because even though it's kind of an evergreen perennial, it does look a little weary after a winter here anyway. Jetta said, did they make over the vegetable garden? It looks different. Maybe I just missed a video. Maybe we just cleaned it up around it. I know we've cut the lavender back. We've cut perennials back that are kind of on that side in the flower beds, which really haven't been developed at all. I really need to figure out what I want to do for this space. It's kind of an awkward piece of grass, but we use the heck out of it. Like, we walk across it all the time. Benjamin has always loved to play under it. It's perfect shade, and it's near the greenhouse. So the kids can be playing right there while I'm messing around and getting some work done, either in the vegetable garden or in the greenhouse, and we're all still together. So I don't want to take out too much of the grass, but it's like such a...
Kind of just a weird spot.
It's just a weird spot. Yeah, like, do I make some little corner flower beds? Do I just leave it?
Well, we lay on that grass all the time.
I know. So
you kind of want to leave it grass.
Right.
You don't want to necessarily do anything else with it.
Right. I was thinking, though, maybe like a little flagstone or some kind of path leading up to the arbor, and just making that flower bed a little bit bigger, like maybe the other side, just so that like the entry looks a little bit more pleasing, and then the rest of it could all be grass to the greenhouse.
Sure.
We also film there quite often.
Yeah,
It's
right.
nice to have the flexibility to put a table out underneath that tree in the shade in the summertime. So I think we'll just have some... I think everybody has weird spots where you just like, you leave it because it's so practical and you actually use it the way it is, but it could be designed better. And M. Ball said, why not use a tube for drainage rather than slits in the plastic? I'm not real sure like how that would work. Like, would you make your slit in the plastic and then put the tube through it? And then like try to, like, you'd have to silicone that tube, and you'd have to make sure the planter was up high enough to where the tube had room to go down through.
Right, you would have to silicone the tube because otherwise it would just go
leak
all
through
around.
the sides.
Yeah, right.
And then if there's tube, like, you'd have to have a big enough opening at the bottom of the basket to get through. And a lot of times when I do planters like that, if there is a big enough opening between like the wicker pieces, I'll actually pull the burlap through and then pull the plastic through and cut once it's out of from underneath the basket. So the water's actually going through a hole, like through the plastic and the burlap through the bottom of the basket, so that no water actually hits the bottom.
Right.
And remember, I tried to do it with this one, and they were way too close together.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes any sense, but yeah, I don't know how a tube would work. I mean, that would be nice.
Yeah.
If you could figure out a way to get that to work. I mean, you could, with some silicone and cutting out part of the basket, lifting the basket up enough to where the tube has room to escape. Anything's doable, right?
Sure.
Dawn said, you fooled me. I was thinking that's too few plants. She usually uses way more. Then you whipped out the tray of violas. Also, do you sing? Do you have a pretty singing voice? That's so funny. No, I don't have a pretty singing voice. I sing to the kids. I wish I had a pretty singing voice.
Well, the thing is, it's like kind of untested. Like, you won't sing for anyone, and so
You hear me
like,
sing to the kids all the time.
Yeah, it's not bad. So, but also, like, you're singing to the kids is not the same as if you're actually like singing a song kind of on purpose, you know, to...
It's not like I've been working on the railroad.
Yeah, right.
Jingle bells.
So you might have a nice singing voice.
No one will ever know.
Especially if you might think that you don't have a good singing voice just because you don't test it that often, singing. But if you did sing more often, you might improve the quality. Like, there's some people that I know that my opinion was that they had a bad singing voice, but they kept singing. And then, like, after a few years, I was like, dang, like, they improved their voice so much just by the fact that they just kept at it. Like, I don't think they got lessons or anything. They just kept at it and, like, way more on tune.
Really?
Yeah.
Aaron has a good singing voice.
Nah.
Yep. Plays a guitar and sings really nicely. And that is it for today's recap video, you guys. Another busy week coming up, I think. Even with the cold, I think there's so much to do right now.
Next week, we get trees, a load of trees from Jaker.
Yeah, so when we went out and looked at those trees at that wholesaler place, we did buy quite a number of them, and they were going to deliver them this week, and then we saw that cold snap, and so we pushed it one more week. So they should be here on Monday. I'm excited. I'm excited to share with you guys what we have coming, because we just decided for some things, especially evergreens, we wanted to start with some like slightly bigger ones because, you know, it takes evergreens a long time to grow. So we're paying for a few extra years of growth, but I'm excited to share that with you this next week. Anyway, hope you guys are having a great day. Hope you have a great week, and we will see you in the next one. Bye.